It seems my husband has been possessed by a devil.
I'm giving this house to Susan. If you oppose me, we're getting a divorce.
He's planning to give our house, which is under my name, to our eldest son's wife.
Old hag, get out of here as soon as possible.
The wife who got my husband on her side.
I'm changing it to my name. I can handle a monthly mortgage of about $1,800 easily.
It seems my eldest son has joined her. Well, I don't have any attachment to this filthy house anymore. I'll move out then. I will make sure all three of you go to hell. Prepare yourselves. My name is Grace, and I'm 60. I work in an executive position in a major corporation. I live with my husband, Robert, who is 2 years younger. Last year, we renovated our house for our future. Our house was built by my father, and it's quite old. For that reason, it was really worn out, and we wanted to make it easier to live in as we approach our old age. However, because of our age, the loan is a bit high at $1,800. However, it's not an amount we can't afford, and I was told that the loan would be approved since I work in an executive position at a major company. By the way, Robert is a manager at a small restaurant, and his income is less than mine, so apparently, it's easier for me to get a loan.
It would be difficult for me to keep paying off the loan with my income. It was originally your father's house and now it's in your name. I feel bad, but could you pay the entire amount? I'll make up for it by contributing more to our living expenses.
We discussed this together and decided to renovate. Our home has become so beautiful and comfortable that it's almost unrecognizable. I was so happy that, by renovating the house where I had spent my childhood, I could continue to live there forever. That's what I thought. I never thought the day when I would have to leave this house would come. One day, my smartphone vibrates.
I'm getting married.
I was told this by my eldest son, Jack, over the phone. Jack is 31 years old and a section chief at a major company. Our eldest son has always been diligent, dedicating himself to studying and club activities. He's also very dedicated to his work after being an adult. Because of that, I hadn't heard any rumors about his love life. I was really curious about the woman that Jack was thinking of marrying. Indeed, very intriguing. What kind of woman could she be? If Jack likes her, she must be wonderful. But I wonder if she's scheming something, taking advantage of Jack's lack of dating experience. I was half excited, half anxious about the woman our son would be bringing home for the first time. Then came the day of meeting her. A neat woman with brown hair and wearing a white chiffon dress showed up.
I'm Susan. Nice to meet you.
She had very good manners and a neat appearance, making a great first impression.
Nice to meet you, Dad, Mom.
Showing her clean, white teeth, she smiled at us. I can entrust Jack to her. That's what I was thinking, and Robert also seemed to feel the same way, smiling broadly.
She's a good girl.
As Robert murmured quietly.
I am very pleased to hear that from you, sir. I'm looking forward to getting along with you,
she said, clutching Robert's hand and looking into his eyes. What on earth is she doing? Surprised by her close distance, I pulled back a bit. Jack seemed surprised too. But Robert didn't seem bothered. I wasn't jealous, but it was not a pleasant feeling. What are you doing? Thinking it wasn't good for Jack, I addressed Susan. Then, in a flustered manner, she said,
Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that on our first meeting. I'm really sorry.
And immediately let go of Robert's hand.
I often hear from everyone that I don't understand personal space. I don't mean any harm. I just end up doing it. I'm really sorry.
She doesn't seem to be a bad person. But I couldn't hide my surprise at her behavior, even though my first impression was good. But Jack was head over heels for her. Also for her behavior.
You know, Susan may not understand personal space, but I think that's one of her good points. She approached me, even though I'm shy and have trouble approaching women. That's why I'm able to be in a relationship with Susan and even considering marrying her.
I didn't expect the usually introverted Jack to change this much due to Susan's behavior. I entrust Jack to you. I had a lot of speculation, but I recognized she is a good person. I approved their marriage. And then things moved quickly, and they got married a few weeks later. I wished them all the happiness from the bottom of my heart. Half a year after their marriage, one day, I'm home. When I got home from work, I saw a women's shoes at the entrance. In the living room, there was Susan.
Ah. Welcome back, mother-in-law.
Looking at the table, there were lots of empty cans and bottles of booze. It seemed they had been drinking. What is this? Why were they having a drinking party without Jack? Being curious, I asked.
Well, when I was about to come back from work, I bumped into Susan. She said she wanted to get along with me better, so we decided to have a drink. But I'm broke before payday, so I suggested we drink at home.
Why have a drinking party at home? It would be better if Jack was also there, and I didn't want to intrude on the newlyweds. They could have just drank at Jack and Susan's place. I asked while tilting my head.
It would have been fine at our place, but this house is so beautiful. And right now our place is a mess.
Susan, who wasn't pronouncing words properly. I was surprised because she usually speaks politely, but she started speaking casually, probably because she was drinking. But why were they drinking together? Why didn't you invite Jack? For a daughter-in-law to come to her in-laws' house alone. And to come for drinks while they're newlyweds, I think it's a little out of the ordinary. From the moment I saw the two of them, I had been looking for Jack.
Jack is, he's so caught up in the busy season at work and has been working overtime nonstop. That's why I'm just so lonely.
Susan starts to cry as she says this.
Shush now, Susan. It's not your fault. The one to blame is Jack for leaving his newlywed wife alone.
Robert begins to console her, stroking her hair. Daddy-in-law. What a bizarre scene. It's rather nauseating. Hey! Robert! Susan is your daughter-in-law. It's disrespectful to Jack. You shouldn't act like this. I scold Robert for his inappropriate behavior. But then,
don't scold Daddy-in-law, please.
Susan stands up for Robert. What? Her response was so absurd I couldn't help but blurt out my confusion. I had a lot to say, but after a tiring day at work, I couldn't be bothered. I'm going to take a bath. Please clean up after. I sigh as I head to the bathroom to escape. Then I call Jack to explain the situation. He says he'll stop working and come to pick Susan up right away. I see Susan as a bit eccentric, but Jack must really love her to be willing to leave work and come get her. But it might be a bit challenging to live with her after marriage. I may not be the best mother-in-law, but once Jack arrives I decide to offer him some advice on married life. Time flies as I soak in the tub, lost in thought. Feeling a bit lightheaded, I head to the living room, where I find Jack has arrived to pick up Susan. Or so I thought, but despite having driven here, he's drinking. Jack, you drove here, right? You're not supposed to drink. I question him, and he cheerfully replies in his tipsy state.
No, Susan said she wanted to drink, so, So, I've decided to stay the night.
I'm glad my son will be staying over. But the daughter-in-law, who's left a bad impression, is here too. And all of a sudden, I'm honestly baffled. But Jack's already been drinking. You know, I can give you guys a lift. I really don't want the daughter-in-law to stay over. Despite being tired, I proposed to drive them home. But then,
No. I feel bad for you. You must be tired too. How about you join us for a drink?
Jack suggests with an easygoing smile. I can't say anything more. At this moment, something felt off. Suddenly, Susan cracked a mischievous smile. Yes, indeed. It was as if she was laughing at my bewildered state. It's just my imagination, right? I tried to convince myself it was just a misunderstanding. But in fact, her incredibly terrific plan had already begun at that point. The next day, Susan kept apologizing for her blunder.
I'm truly sorry,
she said and left, and I felt relieved as if a storm had passed. Then that day, when I got home, Susan was there again. There was no sign of Jack. I was filled with a sense of despair, but the situation was different from the day before.
I'm sorry to disturb you again, but I really wanted to apologize,
she said, offering me some sweets.
I guess I got carried away, my bad.
Robert seemed remorseful. It was a bit annoying, but they seemed to be reflecting, so I should let it go this time. I forgave them.
Thank you.
And maybe because Susan felt quite awkward about the whole thing, she stopped coming over. Frankly, I didn't want to deal with her much, so I was grateful for the outcome. So I thought, until one day, Robert came to me with a serious face, saying he had something to talk about. As I was wondering what it was and stayed in the living room, Jack and Susan came home. It's been a while. I greeted them, but for some reason, I was ignored. Did they not hear me? As I was wondering, Robert suddenly shouted,
I'm giving this house to Susan. If you object, we're getting a divorce.
What? As I thought he was suddenly blabbering about, he's giving the house to Susan. I didn't understand. As I was taken aback.
Mother-in-law, please leave,
Susan said that. What? What does this mean? I was in chaos. Hold on, what do you mean you're giving the house to Susan? When I questioned, Robert answered.
You've been bullying Susan all this time. Doing such a stupid thing.
Bullying. Baseless. That's impossible. But no matter how much I argued, Robert wouldn't listen.
Shut up. She said so. That's why she was crying that she couldn't come home until now.
Robert kept yelling, and Susan was shedding tears. Why did it come to this? Then Jack snapped, as if to join in.
I didn't think my mother would do something like that. This is seriously messed up.
The more I denied it, the angrier the two of them got, and Susan was overflowing with tears.
That's why I'm divorcing you. Get out now. I'm staying here with the two of them.
Why on earth should I have to give my house to Susan? When I ask, he retorts.
Because Susan is deeply hurt. Normally, we should be demanding compensation, but I think there's a better way. To take away your precious house and give it to Susan. That way, it should inflict appropriate damage on you, right?
I didn't bully her. Why do I have to be hurt? Besides, there's no way Susan, who quit her job when she got married, can pay an $1,800 loan. When I say that, he replies,
Don't worry. The title will be in Jack's name. With Jack's salary and previous employer, we can immediately change the title.
Even so, since the loan is in place, changing the title is basically difficult. If it were that easy to change the loan, anyone could buy a house. I don't think the bank will approve it. When I say that, Robert says,
You work for a big corporation, and so does Jack. So it should be okay. Plus, one of my friends works at the bank where you have your loan. I think we can talk to him and everything will be okay.
It's unclear where such confidence comes from.
That's right. An $1,800 loan is no big deal.
Jack, brimming with confidence, led by Robert's words. It has become a real matter that I will have to hand over the house. I've said it over and over, I haven't bullied her. So I absolutely won't give up the house. When I object, they both blow up again. This is too much. As I'm getting fed up, Susan, who has been crying the whole time, speaks up.
Mother-in-law, for the sake of this child, please.
Susan pleads, stroking her belly. No way.
Mom, Susan is pregnant. If she remains this mentally unstable, she might have a miscarriage, right? So, please, give in.
She announces her pregnancy here. Stress is indeed a big enemy during pregnancy. But that doesn't mean I should give up my house because of some unfounded accusations. I remain perplexed. Just leave me alone for a bit. I leave the scene and go to the bedroom. Bullying. Have I unknowingly been horrible to Susan? As I'm lying on the bed, riddled with worry. What's this? There's a strand of brown hair on the bed. Both Robert's and my hair are black. There's no way a strand of brown hair could fall. Wait, has there been an affair? On top of the earlier argument, now this awful truth is revealed. My mind is on the verge of exploding. I don't even know what's going on anymore. I cry myself to sleep. And when I wake up, it's night. As I tried to enter the living room, I could hear voices. It seems that Jack and Susan aren't back home yet.
I wished I could have a drink too.
You can't. You're pregnant, remember?
Robert and Susan, full of enthusiasm. I found no chance to intervene. The mysterious accusation of Susan left me in despair. As I remained unable to enter the living room, suddenly, I heard the sound of an intimate encounter.
Oh. Susan. I love you.
Stop it. Robert. Jack and my mother-in-law will find out, you know.
What the hell are Robert and Susan doing? What on earth is happening here?
Don't worry. Jack is passed out drunk. And Grace hasn't come out of her room for a while. She's probably sleeping already.
Is she sulking? Too funny.
The brown hair probably belonged to Susan. It's disgusting. What were these two doing on the bed I was sleeping in until just a few moments ago? I feel nauseous. I bet they kicked me out and planned to have a good time with Susan, hidden from Jack. My home, a venue for their illicit affair. Fine, I'll let go of this disgusting home. But you will see consequences. The next morning, I acted as if I'd been asleep in my room and nothing happened in front of the three. Actually, I didn't want to sleep in that bed anymore, and I was too shocked to get any sleep.
Finally, handing over the house.
When I said, I've decided to hand over the house, everyone broke into a grin.
Great. Let's get the transfer of ownership done. I'm sure I can get a loan approved in no time.
Jack is quite excited. This kid probably doesn't know anything. It made me sad, but I won't tell the truth to a son who doesn't listen to his mother and is completely controlled by his wife. Not yet. And then, days of hustle and bustle followed with divorce procedures and transfer of ownership. It was quite tough, but somehow, we managed to change the ownership.
From today, it's no longer your house.
Robert jeered.
Get out of here, old lady.
Susan whispered into my ear. It pissed me off. I'll leave, you don't have to tell me. Letting go of the house I've lived in all my life. It was sad, but it had become a place for their infidelity. No regrets left. From now on, I'll mess with these three in their odd relationship. You all will be sorry for what you did. About a month after I moved out. Finally, I'm ready. I returned to my former home. When I rang the doorbell.
What does a stranger want here?
Even after such a long time, Robert was furious. Can I come in? I have something to say. I assertively requested.
Why should I let you in my house?
Robert is reluctant to let me in. I have something important to say. It's also for Susan's sake.
Something important for Susie?
As soon as I mentioned her name, he let me in without hesitation. Honestly, I didn't want to say her name because it made me feel sick. But I knew Robert was soft for her, so I played that card.
An outsider is here.
An outsider. Sure, we're divorced and hence strangers now, but is that the right way to say it? I was irritated by Robert's reaction.
What do you want after all this time?
The three of them are on high alert. I want you to look at this.
What is this?
I laid out the photos.
This is.
The photos are of Robert and Susan on a date. Actually, since we divorced, I had hired a private investigator to tail them. As a result, I obtained photos of them on a date.
Just wait a minute. What?
Jack is shocked. Then,
what are these photos supposed to mean? We're a close father-in-law and daughter-in-law. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah, what do you want taking these nonsensical photos?
Two of them insist they are just close. Well then, how about this? I took out my smartphone and played a recording.
I really do love Susan.
Hey, if you speak so loudly, Jack and mother-in-law will wake up.
It's a recording of Robert and Susan's voices and their indistinct chatter.
What?
Actually, the day I discovered their relationship, I had recorded their conversation.
No. This is a misunderstanding.
Robert desperately tried to explain.
What misunderstanding? This is clearly not okay.
As expected, Jack was furious. She kept her head down. I decided to add fuel to the fire. Listen, I hate to ask, but who's really the father of that baby in your belly? Jack's face went pale instantly.
Do you mean it's with Dad?
No way! My father-in-law was pulling it out every time. Oh.
She dug her own grave.
You just admitted it, didn't you? You just admitted it.
The three of them shouted. Robert and Jack ended up wrestling each other.
Ouch!
She seemed to have had a cramp in her stomach due to the fight, interrupting their scuffle. Then, I immediately said, I've been saying this all along, haven't I? I haven't been bullying Susan. Could it be that you were lying just to drive me away? To make Jack believe. Jack was taken aback.
You're kidding. What the hell? That's just messed up with you guys. And I couldn't trust my own mom.
Jack, who couldn't trust his mother and listen to the wicked woman, seemed to be blaming himself.
Now that you understand all this, spill everything.
Jack shouted angrily at the two of them. They hesitated to confess, but then said,
We have enough evidence here. Are we going to court?
The word court triggered them, and they finally began to talk. Apparently, at first, she seemed to have loved Jack. But when they came to our newly renovated and beautiful home for the marriage proposal, she wanted a house like ours.
My parents' house was pretty run down, and I was jealous of a beautiful house like this. The interior was quite nice too.
she explained while shedding tears. The woman, who wanted a house, seemed to have planned to win over Robert on the day of the marriage proposal. So, she intentionally ambushed Robert after his work, without inviting Jack, and drank at home. For several months that Jack did not come home, she nurtured love with Robert and seemed to have planned to push me out. Then you should have proposed to live together from the beginning. When I said that, she paused and then answered,
I have a bad image of mothers-in-law. My mom and grandma at home fought every day. Because grandma was bullying my mom. I didn't want to live with a mother-in-law. The only way to live comfortably in a beautiful house was to get the mother-in-law to leave.
Surely, with such an image, one would not want to live with a mother-in-law. But stealing your father-in-law. However, what did Robert think about this fact?
I knew I was being used. But when she came to greet me, held my hand and smiled.
Robert, who fell in love, knew he was being used, but he seemed to have done such a thing to abandon me and keep her by his side.
You guys. You're the worst.
When Jack said so, the two of them lowered their heads and shed tears. After that, Jack naturally divorced. When he checked the DNA of the child born just in case, it turned out to be Robert's child.
I won't pay child support.
Saying so, Jack demanded compensation from the two of them. Of course, me too.
I can't believe I'm suing my own father for compensation.
I patted Jack's head as he sighed in disbelief. That crazy woman had thrown us all for a loop. But the one who's going to regret messing up her life more than any of us is her, from here on out. And my hunch was right on the money. Fast forward 2 years. She remarried Robert and decided to stick it out without divorcing. For the sake of their child. She then put the child she had given birth to in daycare so she could work.
Oh, look, Uncle, came to pick you up today.
Apparently, she's been getting the side eye from the other moms at the daycare. The kids seem to be getting along fine, but she's feeling down because she can't make any mom friends. And when she tried to explain her divorce and remarriage to Robert to her own parents, they were furious, and their anger was directed at Robert. She's been estranged from them ever since. All of this is her own doing. And as for that house, Jack is living there alone.
I wanted to sell it, but that would be too harsh on Mom. After all, this is the house where she's been living since she was born, right? A house full of memories. I just can't sell it.
I told him I didn't care and that the house was creepy after all that, but he was so guilt-ridden that he couldn't sell it. And maybe because I've been saying that house gives me the creeps too much? He had it professionally cleaned, and he threw out all of Robert and Susan's belongings. And Jack, who did all that for me, said,
Even though it was because of that woman, I did something terrible to Mom. I know you probably won't forgive me, but please, visit me or come to the house on a whim, and let me show you some devotion.
And with that, he gifted me with a ticket for a hot springs trip. Jack has definitely shown remorse. I can't forgive him yet, but I think I'll try to work towards rebuilding our parent-child relationship as it once was. Grandma, do you think she'll make it? Let's pray. Grandma's fighting hard. Until yesterday, my mother-in-law, Selena, who was lively and well, suddenly collapsed due to a heart attack. It was my niece, Jane, who lives with Selena in our family home, that found her. In front of the ICU, we prayed desperately, but despite our prayers, Selena passed away without returning to us. Selena had 4 children, including my husband, but they arrived at the family home the morning after she passed away. Despite my suspicions about the 4 of them, we somehow managed to get through the funeral. And then, 1 week after the funeral, as life was finally returning to normal, and I had sent my 2 children off to elementary school and preschool, and was watering the flowers in the garden, the mailman came. Among a few postcards, there was one slightly thicker envelope. What could this be? The handwriting on the envelope was familiar, and to my surprise, the sender was Selena. I rushed inside the house, took a deep breath, and opened the envelope, which contained a letter and something else. Please make sure the children do not notice this letter. The letter, which started with this line, was sent through her best friend, expressing gratitude towards me, concern for the future of my children, Montague and Diamond, and also for Jane. Apart from the letter, there was another piece of paper with a map drawn on it. I hurriedly contacted Jane and headed to the location indicated on the map. I've always been helped by Selena until the end. Jane, I've made up my mind. Meadow, I'm supporting you. I had made a strong resolution. My name is Meadow. I live with my husband Frederick, my first-grade son Montague, and my 3-year-old daughter Diamond. I got married at 32, which wasn't too late, but it took a while before we could have children. I still remember how happy I was to finally be pregnant at 37, to the point of tears. With the pregnancy, I quit the company I had worked for 15 years since graduating from college. Although my colleagues were sorry to see me go, as a team leader, I was working overtime almost every day. And I couldn't imagine continuing to work while raising a child. I wanted to cherish the time with the child who had finally come to us. However, I also felt like quitting work would leave me behind in society, making it hard to make the decision. Once the kids start preschool and you have some time, you could work a little at our place. If you're family, you don't have to bow and scrape for sudden pickups, and it's more flexible. It was precisely when Selena, who ran a steakhouse, casually said these words that I was able to make up my mind to quit my job. Selena had lost her husband at a young age and raised 4 children on her own, a true matriarch through and through. Selena, doesn't this seem like a lot of food? You hit the jackpot. Eat up and work hard in the afternoon. She never sweated the small stuff, but she was more sensitive to others' feelings than anyone else. I remember how down I felt when I was struggling to get pregnant. Come on, look up. That's it. Stop by the shop before work starting tomorrow. Saying this, from the next day, she began giving me lunchboxes every day. Make sure you eat well. Being in good health is what's important. She never said it outright, but she took care to help me maintain a body more likely to conceive. My sister-in-law Wendy, sister-in-law Dream, and brother-in-law Melville all married and had children early, and by this time, Selena already had 11 grandchildren. Furthermore, she lived with Wendy, who had moved back home after a divorce, and her 3 children, while the Dream and Melville families lived nearby. Selena, who could see her 11 grandchildren anytime she wanted, must have been more than satisfied with them. Yet, she cried tears of joy for my pregnancy and childbirth. I have always had absolute trust in her, both in the past and now. 7 years have passed since I became a housewife, and with Diamond starting preschool, I decided to start working part-time at Selena's Steakhouse. Selena, listen to this. Montague broke his umbrella again on his way home. While doing the dishes, I vented to Selena about my children's misadventures. I was quite upset that he had broken 2 umbrellas in just a few months, but Selena seemed unfazed by the story. He wasn't being bullied, was he? No. He said he was competing with a friend to see who could dig deeper into the ground with their umbrella. It's good to have a competitive spirit. Plus, now he knows umbrellas are not for digging, right? Laughing along with Selena, I found myself smiling too. The frustration and annoyance from yesterday cleared away. A mother should indeed have this solid and unflappable presence. Being with Selena, I kept finding aspects to admire and emulate. She was my ideal image of a mother. By the way, Selena, do you have any plans for this Sunday? Nothing planned. Everyone's so busy these days. Selena looked a bit lonely. The grandchildren she lives with and those in the neighborhood are all in middle school or older now. They're busy with club activities and hanging out with friends, leaving little time for her. Well, Montague has been saying he wants to go to a sushi restaurant. Why don't we go together? I'd be so happy to see Montague and Diamond. Thank you for always inviting me. Selena's face softened. She dotes on Montague and Diamond a lot. The kids are very fond of her, too, and ideally, I'd love to take them to visit her at the family home more often. But with my sisters-in-law living there, it's not easy to just drop by. And having her come to our place isn't feasible either, as we don't have parking. So, Frederick and I decided to invite Selena out for meals or outings about once every 2 weeks, so she could spend time with our children. Eager to sit next to their beloved grandma, the kids always scramble for the seat next to Selena. Watching them, Selena would smile warmly. Is Frederick working today, too? Yes. He's been really busy since he became a manager. I see. That's tough. Previously, Frederick would join us, but lately, his weekend work has increased, so it's been just the three of us going out with Selena. I wasn't too bothered by Frederick's absence, reasoning that work couldn't be helped and the kids weren't much trouble anymore. However, I couldn't ignore the somewhat lonely look that appeared on Selena's face. Next time, I'll make sure to invite us out on a day when Frederick isn't working. Selena looked surprised, then shook her head and smiled. Don't worry about that. I'm truly happy just to spend time with you all. Saying this, she pulled a small box from her bag. Selena smiled brightly and gently opened the box. This is my treasure box. This ring was given to me by Dad, and this necklace was my first purchase with my first paycheck. The treasure box filled with memories made me smile, too. What about this one in the bag? I pointed to a small drawstring bag. That, you can open when I say it's okay. Huh? Ehe. Selena laughed mischievously. I'll give you my treasure box, Meadow. I'm not at the age to dress up anymore. Saying that, Selena carefully closed the box and placed it in front of me. But, such important things. I want you to have them. To you, my precious daughter. Selena's words deeply touched me. I'll take good care of it. Mother-in-law. Selena smiled warmly and then gently hugged Montague, who was sitting next to her. That's not fair, only brother. Grandma, hug me later too. I'll give you a big hug once we're outside. Selena soothed Diamond, who puffed her cheeks out, with a tender look. Given how much love she showers not just on her grandchildren but also on me, her daughter-in-law, she must really cherish Frederick, her own child. Feeling a bit sad that Frederick seems unaware of the depth of his mother's love, I resolved to make sure Selena could see him the next time. However, that opportunity never came. On a holiday, I went out with the two children. Grandma will be here soon, right? We had invited Selena, but she had an appointment at the hair salon in the morning, so we arranged to meet at the lunch spot. Montague and Diamond stretched their necks, waiting eagerly for Grandma's arrival in front of the restaurant. But Selena didn't show up at the agreed time. I tried calling her several times, but she didn't answer. Being a professional, Selena always made it a point to answer the phone within 3 rings. This habit was ingrained in her, and she would instinctively answer within 3 rings even when not at her store. Yet today, she didn't pick up even after 10 rings. Knowing how reliable Selena was, if she was delayed at the hair salon, she would definitely have contacted us. What could have happened? I was getting worried. Even after waiting for 30 minutes, Selena was nowhere to be seen, and she still wasn't answering her phone. Hey, are we still waiting? I'm hungry. Me too. I want to eat now. As the children started to get cranky from hunger, I hesitated to enter the restaurant without Selena. Here, you can eat this gummy candy while we wait a bit longer for Grandma, okay? I handed out the gummies to the children and pondered. Could something have happened? Maybe I should go check her house. That's when my phone rang. Jane? The name displayed wasn't Selena's but Jane's, Wendy's youngest daughter. Hello, Jane, perfect timing. Is Grandma there? Meadow. What's wrong, Jane? I asked if Selena was at home, but over the phone, Jane sounded like she was crying, and her words were barely coming out. Grandma's collapsed. Meadow, what do we do? Jane's voice was tremulous and faint. Selena has? You can't be serious. I was at a loss for words. Jane seemed to be panicking, her sobbing audible over the phone. Snapping back to reality, I tried to calm her down. It's okay. Take a deep breath. Though I was quite shaken myself, I knew I had to stay calm as the adult, my hands trembling as I spoke. Where did Grandma collapse? In the entranceway. I'm calling an ambulance right now. Stay by her side, we're on our way. After hanging up, I immediately called for an ambulance to her house. Is something wrong with Grandma? Glancing over, I saw the children looking at me anxiously. It seems so. Let's go to Grandma's place, okay? I took the children's hands and headed for the parking lot. On the way, I stopped at a convenience store to buy hamburgers so the hungry kids could eat something in the car. Grandma likes plum. Saying so, Montague confidently added a hamburger for Selena to the basket. I'll share this chocolate with Grandma. Diamond innocently tossed the candy into the basket. Selena, wake up! For these kids, you have to pull through. I fervently hoped this. On our way to her house, Jane called to inform us that Selena was being taken to the university hospital. We rushed to the hospital. Arriving there, we found Jane sitting alone, hunched over in front of the ICU. Jane. Meadow. As soon as she lifted her face, tears streamed down Jane's cheeks. You did well on your own. It's okay now. I sat next to Jane and gently rubbed her back. After calming down a bit, Jane shared what happened when she found Selena. Jane, a 9th grader, said she was at club activities that morning. When she returned home before noon and tried to unlock the door, she found it already open. Feeling suspicious, she gently opened the door and discovered Selena collapsed. I'm sorry for calling all of a sudden. I couldn't get through to anyone else. You were the only one I could turn to, Jane said with an apologetic look. No, thank you for calling. We were supposed to have lunch with Grandma. And when she didn't show up past our meeting time and didn't answer her phone, I was really worried. But I never imagined she had collapsed. I regretted not heading to her house as soon as we couldn't get in touch. Then, a hospital staff member approached us. According to the staff, Selena had suffered a myocardial infarction and collapsed. Her condition was critical when she was brought in, and they were doing their best to treat her, but there was no guarantee she would survive. We need to contact everyone. Jane and I tried to call the relatives, but no one answered their phones. Why isn't anyone answering at a time like this? I was frustrated, especially since I couldn't even get through to Frederick. Lately, not only had he been working on weekends, but he also came home late on weekdays. He often came home slightly drunk. He said the drinking was for work or to cheer up his subordinates, but recently, it felt like he was neglecting his family. "Selena wanted to see you." I got it. I'll make sure to join next time." Yet, on the morning of his day off, Frederick would say, "Something came up at work," and leave the house. Work or family, which is more important? This incident occurred amidst my growing frustrations with Frederick. "Selena has collapsed and is in critical condition. Please contact us immediately." I sent this message, but there was no response from Frederick or his siblings. "Is it normal for everyone to be this hard to reach?" When I asked, Jane nodded. "In our family, everyone does their own thing. It's always just Grandma and me for dinner." "Is that so?" I had no idea about this. At least, Selena had never mentioned it. According to Jane, her mother Wendy never took care of the house and would often disappear when the children were young. Selena had reprimanded Wendy many times. "You are the mother of these 3 children." "But Mom, you're better at housework and raising children than I am." "Of course, I am. I raised 4 children." "You'll get better if you do it every day." Selena tried to encourage Wendy to be more motherly, but Wendy continued to prioritize herself, coming and going as she pleased. Therefore, Selena, while working, tirelessly looked after Jane and her siblings with a smile. However, having grown up with such a mother, Jane's siblings now, apart from Jane, do not feel grateful towards Selena and leave the household responsibilities to her, living as they please. Now that I think about it, Selena always talked about Jane. I suddenly remembered. Jane's hamburgers are the best in the world, or when I started having trouble threading needles because of my farsightedness. Jane bought me a needle threader. Grandma always talked about Jane with a smile. Hearing my words, tears once again welled up in Jane's eyes. Will Grandma make it? Let's pray. Grandma's fighting. But despite our hopes, Selena passed away, leaving us behind. Looking at Selena lying on the bed, she seemed to be just sleeping with her usual gentle expression. Grandma, we bought you a hamburger. Let's eat chocolate together. The children, mistaking her for just sleeping, spoke to Selena. Grandma won't wake up anymore. She's gone to heaven. Where's heaven? Is it a nice place? It's a very nice place. Grandma must be happy meeting Grandpa there. Indeed, Selena must have finally met her husband whom she longed to see. I hoped they would spend their time together happily. With that thought, I couldn't find myself crying. We received explanations from the hospital about what would happen next and headed to the family home to prepare for the funeral. Even though it was already evening, nobody was at the family home. The kitchen was set up for dinner. It must be cream stew for tonight. The amount prepared was for a family of 5. Despite not knowing when everyone would return or if they would eat, Selena always prepared meals for the whole family. Till the end, I was deeply moved by Selena's kindness and greatness. Colleagues from Selena's steakhouse also came to the family home to help. We want to help in any way we can for Selena, they said, helping with the funeral preparations. While sharing memories of Selena, we brainstormed and proceeded with the preparations. Jane was the only one familiar with the house. But there were things even she, still a high school student, didn't know, making the preparations challenging. Wendy, whom we thought would return eventually, never came back, and there was no contact with any of the siblings-in-law. Although there was much to consider, my thoughts were only on Selena, and I took the initiative to act. Frederick and his siblings arrived at the family home the next morning. What have you been doing all this time? I gave Frederick a cold look. There was trouble at work. I was utterly dismayed that Frederick, even after his own mother passed away, still used work as an excuse. And it wasn't just him. From Wendy and the other siblings-in-law, there was no word of thanks for anything said about Selena or for the funeral preparations. Then, see you at the funeral. Call us anytime if you need anything. Sensing the odd atmosphere, the colleagues quietly left. During the funeral, Jane and I, despite our grief, fulfilled our duties as family members. But Selena's own children seemed indifferent and did not make any effort to participate. Thinking about these four disturbed my peace of mind. I focused on my last moments with Selena. A week after the funeral ended. As life slowly returned to normal and I had sent the two kids off to elementary school and preschool, I was watering the garden when the mailman arrived. Among a few postcards, there was one slightly thicker envelope. What could this be? The handwriting on the envelope was familiar, and surprisingly, the sender was Selena. I quickly went inside the house, took a deep breath, and opened the envelope, which contained a letter and something else. Please make sure the children do not notice this letter. The letter, starting with this line, was sent through her best friend, expressing gratitude towards me and concern for the future of Montague, Diamond, and Jane. Apart from the letter, there was another piece of paper with a map drawn on it. I hurriedly contacted Jane and headed to the location indicated on the map. I've been helped by Selena until the end. Jane, I've made up my mind. Meadow, I'm supporting you. I had made a strong resolution. A month later, we were called by a lawyer to the family home. Besides us, the Wendy family, Dream family, and Melville family were also gathered. It turned out that Selena had prepared a will during her lifetime and left it with the lawyer. In the will given by the lawyer, Wendy, Frederick, Dream, Melville, divide everything equally among the four of you. It was written. I thought I had no part in this, so I should go upstairs and take care of the children. Just as I was about to stand up, an unbelievable phrase caught my ear. She was a noisy old woman, but at least it was good she left us an inheritance. The voice belonged to Frederick. Really, it was worth putting up with everything. The four of them mocked Selena's memory. At that moment, my anger exploded. I no longer want anything to do with any of you. And that includes you. With that, I slammed a completed divorce application form on the table. The room fell silent. What's this all of a sudden? You've been living because of what I do, you know. Frederick glared at me sharply, but I glared back without backing down. The late nights and weekends weren't for work, but for your affairs, right? I have the evidence. I then spread out a private investigator's report on the table. In fact, the letter from Selena included a key to a coin locker located at the place marked on the map. When Jane and I opened the locker, we found a report on Frederick's affair. Selena must have felt something was off with Frederick's recent work on weekends. This must be a mother's intuition. Selena had secretly hired a detective agency to gather evidence of Frederick's infidelity. I was completely unaware of the affair, so I was truly amazed by Selena's actions. I don't want a share of the inheritance or compensation from the divorce trial. Just sign the divorce papers now. And never involve yourself with me or the children again. I couldn't bear to be with someone who disregards their family any longer. I spoke with increased fervor. Frederick's expression twisted for a moment, but then he smirked. Fine by me. I'll get to use Mom's inheritance all by myself. Works out better for me. He then filled out the divorce application without hesitation. Since the lawyer is here, it's better to get that promise in writing. Jane's voice came from the side. Right. Saying you don't want compensation from the divorce trial, then coming back crying later is exactly what I'd expect. That's my girl," Wendy praised Jane. Jane was actually advising me out of concern. Thinking this, I didn't retort but decided to have the lawyer draft a document outlining the divorce terms as Jane suggested. The discussion about the divorce was over, and I left the family home with the children. As I was leaving, I asked, "The things I received from my mother-in-law during her lifetime aren't considered part of the inheritance, right? May I keep them as keepsakes? Those are just trinkets in a jewelry box, right? Please, feel free to take them." The 4 siblings, including Wendy, mocked Selena and seemed preoccupied with the inheritance, quickly wanting to dismiss me and the children, outsiders to them. After that, we headed straight to my parents' home. "Welcome back. We've put your things in your room." I had informed my parents about Frederick's affair and my decision to divorce him as soon as I found out. Considering the children, I thought about moving within their current school district despite being jobless. But my family lived in a different state. Children adapt quickly, you know. Encouraged by my father's words, I decided to temporarily return to my parents' home. It was immediately clear that this was the right decision. Visits to my parents' home were rare, maybe once a year. Though initially tense about living with my parents, the children quickly grew fond of them. "Grandpa, let's play catch." Montague, unlike with Frederick, who rarely spent time with him, started playing catch with my dad, who showed him affection. "Grandma, what's this flower?" Diamond, who had been missing Selena, began to enjoy the garden flowers with my mom, knowledgeable about plants. They gradually adjusted to their new schools, and we started a modest yet peaceful life. About 3 months later, I received a call from Frederick. "Did you deceive us?" He seemed to be talking about the jewelry box I had received from Selena before she passed. "I heard from Wendy. There were expensive jewels inside that box." In fact, besides the evidence of the affair, there was another letter in the coin locker. That letter mentioned the jewelry box Selena gave me before her passing. Selena said, "It's okay. When I was told I could open the drawstring bag I had been given permission to open. It contained a gemstone called alexandrite, and the value of the gemstone was about $500,000. This gem allowed me to decisively move forward with the divorce from Selena." Apparently, Wendy had eavesdropped on a conversation between me and Jane, discovering the existence of the gem. "That's why I asked clearly, didn't I? If it was okay to keep what mother-in-law gave me before she passed. That's sneaky." Even over the phone, I could tell Frederick was furious. It wasn't surprising, considering they were now burdened with dividing not just the inheritance but also the debt among themselves. I had been completely unaware of the debt. Later, Jane told me over the phone that Selena had taken a $500,000 loan 5 years ago for renovations to her shop. If she hadn't purchased the jewel for me, she wouldn't have needed to take on such a massive debt. But this was a testament to Selena's kindness. "Grandma always appreciated how kind you were to her, Meadow. Since her own sons and daughter were so distant, she was even happier that you became part of the family." Selena had wanted to express her gratitude to me, and she intended to work off the $500,000 debt herself. If Frederick and his siblings had been kinder to Selena, perhaps she wouldn't have felt the need to leave them with such a burden. They had truly brought this upon themselves. I hoped they would reflect deeply on their actions. After the divorce, Frederick and his siblings tried to contact me several times. But thanks to the agreement we made during the divorce, I managed to fend them off. Not only Frederick but other brothers contacted me. "Next time you contact me, I will consult the police." After I told them that, all contact from them suddenly stopped. According to Jane, the siblings finally realized they needed to sort out their issues on their own. Now, they're embroiled in a dispute over whether to sell the family home. Wendy wants to continue living there rent-free, while Frederick and the others want to sell it to alleviate some of the debt. The four of them seemed to get along well when they were making fun of Frederick. But in the end, all four of them can only think about themselves. Despite everything, I felt truly relieved to have distanced myself from such people. The only person I've kept in touch with is Jane. Moved for university and, coincidentally, started living alone near my parents' home. Montague, I'll help you with your homework. Yay! I love Sister Jane because she's so kind. Jane, with her kind heart, is now studying to become a nurse, aiming to help people just like her grandmother did. Although she can't rely on her mother Wendy, Jane has been working hard, earning a scholarship for tuition exemption and covering her living expenses with part-time jobs and scholarships. When Jane decided on her university, I offered to sell the gem to help with her expenses, but she refused. I want to show Grandma that I can live my life well, with a respectable job on my own strength. Hearing Jane's determination, I decided to quietly support her in her journey. Jane, with her kindness and strong will, she is sure to become a wonderful woman like Selena. When that time comes, I plan to give her a portion of the money from selling the gemstone. After all, Jane was the only grandchild who stayed by Selena's side throughout. And now, I'm also looking for work, trying not to be outdone by Jane. I'm considering starting my own business, something that can be balanced with parenting, and my plans are gradually taking shape. This is all thanks to the jewelry box that Selena left behind. I intend to use some of the initial funds for startup costs, but ultimately want to support my children with the money I earn myself. I want to go to Finland to see the aurora. Montague's eyes sparkle as he solves his homework with a world map drawn on it. Recently, he's been very fond of the globe he received as a gift, eagerly sharing his knowledge about the countries of the world. I want to meet Santa Claus. I'd prefer somewhere warm, like Hawaii. Everyone dreams of their own desired destinations. That's it. I'll use the money Selena left behind to take the children and Jane to the places they want to visit. Surely, it will be an invasion. Just imagining it fills me with excitement. Selena, thanks to you, we can spend our days with smiles on our faces. Please continue to watch over us.